All right. Welcome back. Let's welcome in Coach Pace. He is wide receivers coach at Colgate University. Coach, thanks for being here.
Hey, thank you so much for having me, Steve. I'm really excited to get on and talk. I've been following what you're doing. Think it's an awesome thing as far as promoting all levels of the game. But just thank you again for inviting me.
Yeah, because I started this February of 2020, and it was supposed to be just talking sports with people. Then
Hmm.
COVID hit, so of course there was no sports to be had to talk about. And then what's funny is other high school coaches would send me a message during COVID, like, "Hey, I saw you started a podcast. Like, how do you do that?" So I had to tell them, like, "Hey, I'm stupid. So I found this website that's connected to Spotify, and you just boom." And all of a sudden, two or three people started their own and like had me on. And then they turned theirs into like, let's talk to coaches because we have nothing else to do. And it almost became like a competition. Like, well, if they're talking to two coaches a day, I'm going to talk to three. And like, it was a friendly, like, boom, 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 boom. Then it turned into meeting people all over the country and you college coaches dedicating your time to a high school coach saying, "Yeah, I'll talk to you for 30 minutes." Like, I think that's awesome. And it shows how coaches help each other out a lot.
Oh no, 1,000%. Anything you can do to spread, the game is a positive. The cool part is like my career path has just been sort of I don't want to say non-traditional, but I've had roles at every level of football, high school, all the way up to the highest. So, you know, um, that byproduct of getting to meet so many different people has shown me it doesn't matter like where you are, what you do. If you care about the kids, you work really hard at what you're doing, and you have everybody's best interests at hand. If you're too big for stuff, I think bad things can start to happen. So it's awesome to get the opportunity just to talk. And it's awesome to hear how your passion project began. I was going to ask off air how it all started for you, but that's so awesome. And you could see the coach in you competing against your buddies to see who can get the most shows in a day. So can can never take the competitor out of you.
Yeah,
Anyway,
no,
so
and Coach Banstra has his own thing, his shot off. And instead of being mad about it, like most people probably would, I said,
mhm.
"That's awesome." It was one of those things where it's like, "That's awesome." Like your his YouTube channel got like 5,000 subscribers within like COVID year, and he did a lot of different things. And there was a time where he was getting like five coaches on a day, and I'm like, "You're crazy." And then it turned into, well, I want to do that. So it turned into like getting eight coaches on in 3 days or whatever it was. And but you know how people get mad at people like, "Oh, you're beating me." And I was like, "No, that's cool. That's awesome." You know?
Yeah, it's all for the betterment of what I mean, what you're promoting and pushing, and just the game of football. The more
Yeah.
people want to talk about, the better it gets. So.
Yeah. And then people said, "Well, wait a minute, like, why do you do this and not make millions of dollars like Pat McAfee?" And I said, "Well, number one, I'm not Pat McAfee. It's not going to happen. Two, I'm cool with just meeting people and talking because you never know. Like if it's crazy, like let's just say we moved to an area near where a coach was and I needed a job, not saying to work for that coach, but they could tell me where to go, you know? So it's
Right.
you got to keep up with people. You got to learn a little bit. And it puts you guys out there too. So if it's on YouTube or an audio and they want to know about more about a coach, there's something out there for them to go look at. Like, oh, let's go hear this person. And I think it helps everybody at some point.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a win-win for everyone, and it's awesome because you get to promote what you're currently doing, get to talk about experiences you've had, lessons you've learned, and if I was always taught if you can take one thing, more applied to clinic season, but if you could take one thing from a clinic or one thing from a coach you're studying, an offense, a defense you're studying, it was a valuable lesson and investment in your time. So I was always taught to invest time, not just waste it or spend it. So anytime you can do something that helps potentially promote someone else or helps you know you learn from this interview right now. I'm learning, you know what I mean? If it's something I go back in time, I'm like, oh, no, that wasn't that great. The delivery of this, or, 10 years from now, we're in the same area of the country. It's a positive thing for us. So,
Right. You said you had a quote unquote non-traditional way to get to college. So what was that way? Was it starting playing college ball, going to high school? Was it going to college, coming back to high school, or
it was actually, was very fortunate how I graduated from Fordham in 2009, and I wrote that spring of my senior year. I pretty much wrote every Division I, Division II, Division III school, a handwritten letter, sent emails. And I was pretty persistent about it, to like emails a week for a while. The letters were like every other week.
Hmm.
And a lot of non-responses are just thank you, but no thank you. And I got real fortunate. My brother, who is currently the tight ends coach at the University of Connecticut, was a 4 or 5 star like blue chip athlete. And I think in part some of the response I got that led to my first opportunity may have been a coach think, hopefully trying to get a 4 star to go to a MAC level school. So a the wide receivers coach at Bowling Green, who also went to the same college I went to, which was Fordham University, got back to me and was like, "Right now we don't have anything. We do slash are looking into creating a new position. It wouldn't be as much football your first year as you'd probably want, but it'd be an academics role." And I ended up going out to Bowling Green July of '09. And I spent that first year out. It was class checks, it was study halls. It was very much thankless, not that
Yeah.
much fun. It was anytime the kids saw me, honestly, it was like, oh, there he is. Because
Yeah.
they knew I was coming for class checks. They knew I was going to be the guy that would pull them in for Saturday night study hall. Because if you missed something or you didn't turn something in, it got reported to us. Coach Clausen had a club. The SIBO Athletic Center was the name of the football complex, but we called it Club SIBO. So from like 10 to like whatever midnight on Saturday nights, you came in and you did your study hall time then, and that was always my Saturday night for that first year. So did that. Got did a pretty good job. I'd like to think coach promoted me to a GA role with the program. Did that for 3 years. Went back to my alma mater, working for Joe Moorhead for
Uh-huh.
8 years at Fordham. Coach taught me so much about football, so much about people. I think everybody needs somebody to take that first shot on them, see that talent in them that maybe even that person doesn't see in themselves. And Coach Moorhead was that man for me. Gave me the opportunity to come work for him, and to speak about trying to do more with less or having a lot of success and maybe not getting, you know, uh, payback on your investment. We ended up putting Fordham through a 3 great year stretch where I think we were ranked for 3 consecutive seasons, did a bunch of good stuff, and did it with less. And coach would always joke, like, oh, that's where the football building's going to go one day. That's where the new weight room's going to go one day. And it's good because that's all that stuff's finally happened now, however many years since the staff that was there departed. But it was always one of those jokes like, dang, we keep winning and we get less.
Right.
But from there, went to Fordham. Coach ended up moving on to Penn State, and then he went down to Mississippi State, and I was really fortunate. He let me come down to Mississippi State with him, and to go down south was something really, really cool for me, culturally and geographically. I'm
Hmm.
from the Cleveland, Ohio area originally, so I've been East Coast and the Midwest, but to go down to the Deep South was something uh, that changed my life for the best. Got to work with the tight ends down there for a long time. Great kids, great people. Learned from a Mississippi legend and coach, Tony Hughes, and just to see how humble he was and how kind he was to me. I think he could tell I was a little bit out of my element, and he made it home really, really quickly for me and the family. It was awesome. We got let go there, and then I ended up going to Center College, which is a Division III program in Danville, Kentucky. When Coach Moorhead got let go, we all had to find our next opportunity.
Hmm.
So to go from the SEC to the D3, it just showed the humbling factor of the industry, and uh, I it was like one of those moments where I was like, wow, this is great because I felt like if you love the game of football, it doesn't matter where you're doing it, doesn't matter what you're doing, doesn't matter your paycheck. If you're doing it for the right reasons, you're
Hmm.
going to find passion in it. And so to be in Danville, Kentucky, and it was right about as COVID was going to start to show itself. We that didn't get to actually play a single game while I worked at Center College, but we ended up practicing like all fall when they let students return to colleges, and they
Right.
felt like they had COVID and enough of a control to allow certain events to take place. And we ended up getting to practice. So it was like a fall ball, and we practiced a lot, and it was awesome because we got to do a bunch of stuff and have fun. And there was no ramifications or pressure of like, oh, we have to get ready for a game. So everybody got to have a lot of fun with that, and the kids loved it because it was their opportunity to get out of their dorm room with the the protocols they were facing.
Right.
From there, went up to Rochester, New York, which I was the OC at St. John Fisher University for a while.
Uh-huh.
It was
Yep.
awesome experience. Learned from a guy who Cortland just won the national championship at D3.
Uh-huh.
That staff, I think, in part was born from the guy, Coach Paul Vosberg, who is the head coach of Fisher still to this day. Anybody at that level, I think, can almost 6 degree separations. Paul Vosberg. So he taught me so much about people, football, and then just different leadership styles. It was great to see. He was completely hands off. He trusted the people he hired and gave you the opportunity to have a lot of fun and do your thing, which was great. Then after that, I was a high school head coach for a season. It was a good opportunity to learn a different level. And from there, I went because it just overall wasn't a great fit for me. I went back to the college game, and I was very, very fortunate to be working at Colgate University. Just finished up our 2023 season, and we had a lot of fun with it. Started off kind of slow. We played two nationally ranked teams in a FBS program, and to our kids' credit, they could have been like, "Hey, this is going to be a really, really long year," but we ended up ripping off 6 or 7. Just signed a 24-person class, so real excited for all the stuff that's happening. Kids, the head coach is an alum, Coach DeCosti, and he loves the place, and you just see the passion when he talks about his home. So
Mhm.
it's a good thing they got going, and we're happy about it.
So you just basically lived in every part of the country almost. You've been all over the place, which is awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. I was at Fordham for like 8 years, so I don't know if I got to the point where I was stagnant in my growth, and I
Yeah.
felt like work, and then not even the work, but just how much I was giving to the kids. I don't want to say it was falling, but I could feel it. And I was like, no, the reason you get into it is to make a difference in a kid's life. And if I'm not caring as much about the kid as I am, hey, how do I get to this, to this, to that? It's like, no, I'm doing the wrong thing. So I asked my wife if it was all right if we would try a move. And that's when we ended up going to Starkville, Mississippi. And from there, I don't want to say the intent was to bounce around as much. All the moves were just taking a different position. There were step ups in responsibility for me, and selfishly, I've always wanted to call football plays because I thought I got. I don't think I know I got to watch a very special man do it at Fordham and Coach Moorhead,
Right.
and just the ability and nature in which he did it, and how calm and cool and collected he was
Yeah.
in doing it, and just the way he broke people down. I always wanted to try to mimic it to the best of my ability, so I got the opportunities to do that, and I was like, all right, I had to go pursue that and find out if no one likes failing, but if you do fail, at least you know because you tried. You didn't
Right.
think about, hey, this is what I want to do. You went and did it. So
Right. That kind of happened to me. I was a 25-year-old OC at high school. Now the problem was you think you know everything, so you're like, "Oh, this is going to be easy," until you
yeah,
realize you do it, and you're like, "Oh, wait a minute. Hey, it's 3rd and 2. What are you going to call? What are you comfortable with?" And then you're looking at your sheet, and if you're looking at the sheet, I realize you're in trouble. If you're already looking at the sheet, you're like, "Oh, I'm a little bit in trouble. I should already know." Or you're in charge of all the position groups and stuff like that, and you're like, "Well, wait a minute. Like, if the O line's not doing its job, you got to go down there and make sure everything's going right or whatever." And I was coaching with guys that were like 40 some years old and I'm 25 and they're mad that I'm telling them what to do because I'm 25 years old. How do you handle that? Well, because I'm 25, shut up. Like you're handling it the wrong way and all
right.
that stuff.
That seeing a bunch of different leadership styles, having worked for a bunch of different people. There's obviously it's like offense or defense. There's many ways to do it. It's just what fits you and who you are. But like some of the best leaders I've seen, like some of them don't say a word. Others are very
Mhm.
demanding in their communication. But yeah, I could definitely be like, I could see and empathize with what you're discussing because I think we've all had those situations where like, and hindsight's always 2020. I should have done this. I should have done that. And I think as I've gotten older, being what almost 38 now, just to see, I think it's you can tell when you're around somebody who has a special uh, quality or a special style of leadership. Our OC right now at Colgate is very special in that you very unassuming. You won't even know. I think you know how awesome and how smart he is when he steps in the room because he doesn't want you to know that, and
Right.
he keeps you very much involved and he keeps you very much a part of it, and he empowers you, which is really really cool. And I think that's probably because of what happens up from the top down. You're usually a reflection of the leader of your program, and you come one down. So, but yeah, Coach Bash is a special dude with that.
Yeah, that I won't talk too much about my experience when I was OC for the guy I was working for because
Okay.
there was something going on, but I will say that was in Central Illinois.
Hmm.
Um, we're in Charleston, where Eastern Illinois is, and
Hmm.
my now wife got a job up in the suburbs. She's from the suburbs, moved up here in 2018, and it was so bad I was never going to coach again. From what I was experiencing, I was like, I'm never coaching again. I'm going to find something
Oh,
else.
okay.
Well, then what starts to happen is you move up here in like May, summer hits, everybody's posting their football stuff. And then you start doing one of these. You start scratching a little bit, and you're like, well, I think I should coach.
Right. You
And I
got that
was,
itch.
oh yeah, and I was super blessed that his name's Coach Walters. He was like, I started reaching out to people just to see. I don't know anything from the suburb.
Hmm.
He goes, hey, come talk to me. So I went and talked to him. He goes, hey, I coached at Charleston in like the late 90s, early 2000, blah, blah, blah. We start talking, and he goes, okay, you're going to come on, be my assistant O line coach with the O line coach, and we're going to get you coaching again. And I was like, okay. And because of him, because I was like old school of like yelling and doing this, doing that. And he pulled me aside and he goes, hey, love the passion, love the old school because I'm old school, but you got to learn the new school. And I said, what's the new school? He goes, you and I respond well to this.
Right.
And he's like, we got to be able to do this. So because of him, he got me back into it. Then all of a sudden, I just start ringing off coaching, like volunteered for him, went to a high school and got a stipend. Now I'm at a school now with a stipend. I started coaching baseball, basketball. It all started to click and started to go back. And because of that, I've learned what I did wrong in Charleston. Now, what I should be able to do right here and pick and choose my battles of when am I old school? When am I going to be new school? And some of that comes with age. 33 now, back then I was 24, 25. And you're like, that guy and that situation was wrong. Me up here learning from different people all over the place, reaching out to people and learning different things. This is way better than that because we do adapt. Like you and
Hmm.
I could respond to the old school yelling and doing this and be like, okay, now we have to adapt to each player. Like this
Hmm.
kid's not going to respond with me chewing him. This kid can, or this kid can handle me telling him like, man, you were soft or something like that, and he'll respond. You tell another kid that, they're just going to shut down.
Right. Right. No, it's I think obviously, as you've already pointed out, each kid, your relationship with them will, as the more you get to know about them, I always thought the more they know you care about who they are, not related to football, the harder they'll play for you, the greater the likelihood they'll run through a wall. So I think you can coach kids hard, especially when they can see, feel, and know it's not just word speak, but there's a genuine relationship. You actually know like as much as you can about them, mom's name, dad's name, their classes, how they're doing. But on the point of them, the kid changing, I do believe that it has occurred. And some people, you can yell and you may get a great result out of. Some kids will identify really early, coach, if I screw something up, please, I need to know it and I need to hear it. And
Right.
others, you can't do that to them, especially in a group setting or out on the practice field in front of their peers. They'll just shut down, as you mentioned. It was this past season was a unique thing for our program and me. And our team, our wide receivers coach, who we're going to enter the year with, was really fortunate to a thing with the 49ers during training camp. And he did
Mhm.
such a great job. He actually got a full-time job out of it. And like about 2 weeks before we played our opener, he went out to San Francisco, which you can't fault the man. It's an opportunity to change his life, his family's life. But I went from working with the tight ends from last spring to the receivers, and I was like, oh, I don't know if there's enough time, to like get to know
Mhm.
them, to be able to coach them in the fashion. Because you want to get to know them so that you can push them so that they can produce at a rate that they're really happy about, but you just can't walk in yelling at them. So I'm a high energy guy on the practice field. I run around as
Mhm.
much as my body allows. But the first couple of weeks, I was super quiet, and my boss was like, "Is everything good?" I'm like, yeah, "I just need to get to know these guys a little bit before I would ever raise my voice or before I ever say anything to them." And I think they could figure out that I was making my investment that way into them. I wanted to learn them, and so after each practice, grab one of them, get to know more about them, and I think it paid dividends. And I just appreciated those kids because they bought into it when maybe they didn't have to, just because it was like, wow, this happened so quick. But the seniors in the room were awesome. They're like, "Hey, let's roll." We ended up having a really good year from a statistical standpoint, and but more so just the relationships. And I had so much fun, and I told them every day, it was like, guys, this is the most fun I've had coaching football in a very, very long time. And it was because of them and just like
Mhm.
the whole experience. And like I said, we started off, I think it was 0-3 or 0-4. And I was still having so much fun because the kids every day showed up ready to work and they were awesome. So, the long-winded answer for saying, yeah, you learn from when you're younger and you can take those situations and experiences and apply them differently or, in the same as you get older and it helps. And as long as you're working each day to get better, I think, and you said it, you don't have all the answers and you got to have that humbleness to know you don't.
Um, is that a big part that changed for you? Because I know, like for me, I've been at for me, football programs. I think it's been like 5 or 6 different high school football programs, and each time you're with a new staff, you're with new kids, you get your own room. How is that? How like the biggest part of change of like the culture part of your room? Like, okay, I'm walking in. How do I get these kids to buy into pick up what I'm putting down, kind of thing? Like for me, I had to earn their trust. I had to show them who I am and like explain how it's going to go. But then it got to a point where I could joke with them, like on film. Like if I'm watching an O lineman, hey, you're hiring the Snoop Dogg right now. What are you doing? Or like that type of stuff. And they all laugh. And it's very not, I wouldn't say like goofy in there, but I also don't want to be tense in the room. Like they understand I'm going to come in, I'm going to say wild things because I'm a country boy. I'm going to say wild off the wall things, but
Right.
they know that like I treat them all the same. So like, is that one of the biggest things? Like you said, getting older, more connection with the kid other than X's and O's. Like, how do you command your room when you walk in?
I think you could tell, they can tell if you're being who you are. So, I've always been very big on my family and football and how they tie together. And the message I was taught by coaches, especially mentors that still to this day I think are impactful to me is I push what you're going to do off the field will manifest itself on the field. So they understand where I'm coming from, how important my family is, and what my background is. And then I start to do the same to them. I want to know their background. I need to know who they are because that in turn allows you to connect with that person. And each connection is different, as you mentioned, and how you can coach. Each player is different. You treat them all the same and fairly, but you may coach them a little differently, if that makes sense. And
Mhm.
your connections and your bonds with each may be different. Some players in the past have always just wanted it to be football only or business type of mentality. Others, you could tell when you ask them about how mom's doing or how their sister's doing or even like is grandma doing okay, they're like, okay, that's awesome. And then in turn they're like, okay, so when he's talking they rock and they roll. The bigger thing, when you're young, you don't want to admit sometimes you don't know something or your knowledge on something isn't as strong, so you're like, and you fight the question or you even get like not angry but like, don't worry about it, something to that regard. I think when
Right.
you show humility in front of today's players, to me, I think that's been beneficial. Your willingness to say, "Hey, if I don't know something, I will get you the answer." Something I don't like getting bad info to people, and I don't like receiving bad info. So anything you can do to make yourself as most informed as you can, and the thing that goes back to is just the amount of hours you put into it, the investment you put into your players. I think when they see how much time, how much mental focus, how much physical effort you're putting into them, I think it's you don't need to command it. I think it kind of takes care of it yourself, and then your identification of who your leaders are in your room. You walk into each position room, there's going to be a room that's kind of run by a handful, depending on how big your group is. O line maybe 2 or 3 guys, but once you identify who that is, just making sure you foster a relationship with that person. And you also ask them, how's this going? I have a monotone voice. I know that. So, like you alluded to, dry humor, cracking a joke every once in
Yeah.
a while to make sure everybody is staying awake is a huge thing. And giving them their 5 minutes on their phone during a meeting, whatever it is, to let them
Mhm.
have a moment to decompress because you can't hold their out a whole hour of attention span is I don't want to say unrealistic. You got to be really, really good to do that though.
Yeah.
So
At least for me too, something else I started doing years ago was as a coach, you don't want to be told you're wrong by a kid or admit you were wrong or said the wrong like you know what I mean? Like, oh, I was wrong on
mhm.
this or whatever. I started admitting when I'm wrong. Even so then it got to the point where if they've been around long enough, like a freshman, sophomore may not say this to me, but my senior would. He might be like, but coach, you said this, or like I thought it was this. And you sit back instead of saying, no, do what I'm saying now. You go, hey, you're right. I did it wrong. I said it wrong, whatever, fix it. And when they see that I admit when I'm wrong, or like then they'll see, well, I try to fix it, like, oh, I told you this was what's going to happen in film or whatever, or against a team. We get out there and they run a completely different defense or doing something completely different. But then when you're working to fix it or do those things or whatever it is, and then show that you're a human and you make mistakes, I don't want them to worry about making mistakes. And that's what that old
Mhm.
school thing. The old school thing is you're just going to yell at them and beat them and into the ground, and you're like, oh, now they're afraid to make mistakes. If you're not mad at the mistakes they're making and work to fix it, then they start to trust you more. And so I started doing that when I was younger. Oh, I could never be wrong. If a kid told me something, I was like,
Yeah.
go
Yeah.
run or go get away from me. Now I'm like, no, I'm wrong. I can be wrong. It's okay.
Right. No, it's I think the shift of not you getting angry at them doing something wrong or them being wrong or you being wrong. I've learned as I've gotten older, it's the empowerment of you, the test, the match, the challenge is your ability to take the information that's given to you and then obviously give it to them in a meeting and sometimes not a great deal of meeting time and then their ability to retain it and the better job they do, that's where the pride comes in. Obviously, you want them to play hard as heck and hopefully when you get to a college level, the energy, the effort on a day-to-day basis as far as practice goes isn't something you're having to pull and prod out of kids. But if it is, that's why they call you coach. Whatever it is, you got to get them to go. But that's been more of the focus is I'm going to give them the information they need and deliver it in a manner and a style that they retain it to a point where it's like, okay, now they go out, they play fast as could be. But yeah, I know it's tough if we played three different quarterbacks due to injuries
Yeah.
this year. So at times you had no idea what defense would be like, hey, this is what's on tape. This is what is on the 5 game breakdown, 4 game breakdown. But you do need to understand there's a shot, something different appears. And so you don't want to talk out of both sides, but you wanted to make sure they understood, hey, we're giving you and showing you the pictures of what they've shown us on film. Here's the caveat. It could
Uh-huh.
be completely different because when we roll this guy out there, they're going to be like, oh, okay. So,
Right.
but yeah, no, it's been giving the kids as much information as they can handle, and each kid's different as far as what they can retain and how much they can handle. Um, Giving them that power, it's like, hey, I'm doing my very best and giving you everything I have to empower you to go out there and be the very best version of yourself you can be. So
Oh,
that's been a cool growth.
I feel you on the quarterbacks because during COVID, our season got pushed to the spring. So all basketball, baseball, softball, football got crammed between the middle of January until June 3rd or whatever it was. So all those had to
Okay.
be crammed. And I coached all three. I did basketball, football, track, all in
Oh
that time
gosh.
frame.
So you didn't sleep.
Oh no, I didn't sleep. And
All
then
right.
I'm not getting political, but then all of a sudden, June 5th, we get told go back to normal. So when that happened, the summer hit. We went back to basketball in the summer, football in the summer, how it's always been. And I was so mentally drained that I was saying football terms and basketball practice and vice versa. Well, then we get into the fall. Well, everything's back to normal. So we had another football season in the fall. And we went through five people playing quarterback because our starter broke his jaw. Then our backup broke his collarbone. Then our third string played for a little bit. He gets a concussion. So we're like, oh, shoot. So we find wide receivers and we're like, hey, guess what you get to do today? Go play quarterback. And so
Yeah.
it's like the same thing. And teams knew, like, oh, they have a wide receiver playing quarterback. They're not going to throw it. They're just going to try to run it all over the place.
Right.
So there was times me and the OC would look at each other and be like, do we even need a play sheet? Because we're just going to run the ball. We can't really throw. We don't need a play sheet. We don't need to we just got to be prepared for an 8-man box and see if we can't get to the outside. So and then on top of that, went through 3 or 4 tight ends. I never had the same starting offensive lineman up front because somebody always went down or whatever it was. Defensively, it was the same thing. It was a rough time having those 2 seasons in the same year, and the injuries just piled on. And it was one of the most roughest seasons we've ever had from and I've coached for 14 years. It was one of the most rough due to injuries. Bad. Like,
Right.
and we never knew. We'd walk into practice and we'd be like, all right, who's here today? And you had to we couldn't even game plan for a practice because we didn't know.
No, it's yeah. I think it happened to everybody, regardless of where you were at. But yeah, the sedentary nature of people, and then people getting dinged up so severely. But yeah, I'll tell you what, it made coaches creative. I feel like it had to have. Like we all had to be improvise,
Oh,
improvised and we handled. I don't want to say the lack of knowledge, but you like to be detailed and handle as many situations and think you've thought of everything. You had to get really comfortable understanding you may have missed something because a lot of it was out of your control during those times. So at least that's what I learned from it was you can't have a plan for absolutely everything. You just have to trust yourself, the people you're around, and people that are part of your family, and just go with it. And you'll find a way. You'll find a way. Just put one right, left, right, go forward, and good things will happen eventually.
yeah, I learned that because of this podcast and learning things from people, I learn how you college guys do things because you guys are super smart and simple at the same time with like drills. But then I hear all this cool stuff. I'm like, well, I want to do this footwork. I want to do this to get here. And I realized during that year, trying to do that stuff, because I was brand new during COVID, like that COVID spring, I was the new coach, like coming in. So, like,
Mhm.
you try to make a name for yourself. You're trying to show, like, oh, yeah, I know this, I know this, I know this. And you overdo it a little bit. And then when we went through all those injuries, I realized we can run these different run plays, but how can I steal reps and almost adapt the same footwork to these run plays, just aiming points be a little different and like steal reps. And like, I know it's not traditional to step this way in this run play or whatever, but guess what? These are my kids. So I got to figure out how it works for them. And then how can I also use college terminology to where if one day I do get a Division 1 or, FCS type of player, where when they get to college, they're like, oh, well, Coach Steve has said these words to me before. So now I kind of understand it and they adapt better. From talking to all you college coaches, I'm like, yeah, I want to make sure that happens if that ever does. And that's the one thing I learned was I can give them all these steps. I call it giving them tools in their tool belt. I'm like, hey, I'm giving you steps to get to this guy. Now in a game, if you just want to throw everything I said out the window and you just get there and block him, am I going to complain about it? No. But then remember, as soon as you get beat trying to do it your way, be like, hey, remember all these footwork stuff I had you work on? Why don't you just try this? And then it works.
Having been in different audiences, the kids Fordham or like Colgate's got like a 12% acceptance rate. So that the average kid you walk in there, they're way smarter than all of us. You know what I mean? They got like a 35 ACT. So you got to make sure you're real. They're too literal to a degree. So you got to be careful exactly with what you're saying and how much you give them. Uh, versus a room like the one in Mississippi State, if you talk too much, you'd slow them down. And the goal is to just make them play fast. So sometimes less is more from you in terms of making sure that they're operating. And like I like that you said, you add to their toolbox, you give them the tools they need. You just explain really clearly to them, this is why this is in your toolbox. And this is an example of when you'd use it so that they fall back to those principles, because you want to stress your individual so that they'll carry it over to the group period and that group to the team. But you don't want them like thinking, and slowing them down out there. Like, do I use this step? Do I use this step? It's like you don't know get them to the point where it's like, where's my manual for which footwork I'm using out here? Because at times it always does sound cool, but
Yeah.
all the different things. And I'm with you. It's like, wow, that's pretty. How do I apply it to my audience and my group? Because the way you're going to coach the Division 3 athlete, the high school athlete versus the top tier athlete, their bodies are completely different. And as far as what they're capable of doing, the way they're able to bend, so you got to adjust your delivery and what you're asking them to do. It's awesome to hear you say that's you've been able to combine and find a nice little happy medium, so to speak. I guess would be based off of what you've been studying and learning, and then what you're able to apply with your kids. So.
Yeah. Well, like uh a guy I become friends with is Coach Rudolph, O-line coach at Ohio University. They
Mhm.
use the scooch technique on their inside zone. So I tried it 2 years ago, didn't work. So this year when I came in, we're more inside zone, wide zone stuff. And inside zone, we double team and all that stuff. And I said, okay, I have some kids that are fast enough to take that load step or that step to get there. Other guys, no. So this is what I did. I said, okay, guys, listen. If you can get there by taking this step, awesome. If you're not fast enough, you're going to use the scooch technique. So we're going to work on it. Why do we use this? Because you're not fast enough, but this will get you there faster. So I give them three options. Like, guys, on these run plays, you have three ways to get to that person. So you pick which one you want to do. I don't care. But then, and so I gave them like responsibility and freedom. And then sometimes in a game, I'm like, I don't care if you just run at him, just get there. And I think when I started giving them responsibility, what started to happen was I go, okay, what did you use to get there? And they told me, I'm like, okay, now try this. Or in practice, like, hey, you got three options. And in practice, they're doing it and they have responsibility. It's on them. And they're actually helping each other. It got to the point where we're like, hey, get here. Or I might quiz them. Hey, you have a three technique here. We're trying to get here. What would you use to get here? And they're like, oh, I'm going to use this or this. And I'm like, perfect. And so I've combined it now where it's like, we're not going to waste time in practice doing these things, but we're going to get them all repped at the same time. You pick however you want to get there. I'm not going to be mad if, why did you load step here? Blah, blah. This is not the right play, whatever. Like, hey, this is what we have. And it actually worked this year because then I had my bigger linemen getting where they needed to go. And there was actually a point where my big lineman got there too quick. And I never said it to him before, like, you were too quick. And he goes, I've never heard that before. I've never been told I was too quick.
No, it's all like I think it goes to the same way like your superior, your boss gives you power, not power, but gives you empowerment by giving you a bigger hand or a role in something or trusts you to do something, you become empowered. And as a result, you become the best you can be. You do the same thing with your players. I think you give, uh, they are like, wow, holy smokes, like there's that trust. There it is. And it speaks to the growth and the relationship between you and your room. It's like, okay, here, these are the things we're going to do the most. So I identify those from what are the things, the physical skill sets, the movements that we have to do the most. Those will be our everyday things, our EDD, everyday drills. We have to absolutely do it, non-negotiable.
Yep.
Right from there, let's start to make our way on literally empowered them to the point where they got to pick a indie period every day. And it
Yep.
was like by giving them that ability to say, hey, this is what we're doing. And if it made zero sense to what we are trying to get accomplished that week, well, then I'd be like, all right, we're going to pick a different one. You guys pick it. And I'd always give, they'd be like, what do you mean? I thought we got to pick. You just overruled us. I'm like, yeah, it has nothing to do with what we're trying to get accomplished. So, but it's awesome to hear that was the success you had. We were in spring ball last year, an offensive line coach, his wife was about 9 months, like she was on the verge of giving birth. And so, like the first three practices, he wasn't even there. And you would look down, and like our head coach went down. He's a DB's guy by trade, and he was there. But like the seniors, there's three of them. They just like took, they knew because he had created such a relationship among them. They ran themselves through Indy, and in the spring they had way more than you do in the fall. And
Mhm.
just to see like a reflection of a coach how he's done his job as if he's not there, how his players are. And it's the same old adage of, your character reveals itself when no one's looking. What are you
Mhm.
doing? To see those kids just roll right through their indie every day and us not miss a beat. The first three spring ball practices, it was like, wow, that coach did an awesome job. So it was like a really
Right.
cool thing to see.
I did that a couple of times. I've adopted the fact of less hitting and like all this stuff because I want their bodies to be fresh. And I don't do up downs anymore. I'm like, this is a waste of time. If you guys just don't want to practice, I'm moving on to the next thing. Or like, there was one time where I said, guys, go stand off to the side, do nothing. I'm going to go help out the quarterbacks or wide receivers. Like, I'm done. We're going to go over here. And so I kicked them off the field and I went over there. Well, then I turned around. They went back to doing what we were doing. And the seniors were calling people out, like, get your head out of your ass and like, let's do this. Kind of like the same story you just had. And I'm like, because I had a senior who started with me since he was a sophomore. He started varsity every game as a varsity since he was a sophomore. He went through a 2-7 season, 0-9 season, and now he's a senior and he wants to win. And it turned into that. And I was like, I didn't take credit for it. I was just like, oh, maybe the culture thing that the head coach was starting to do, because we're a reflection of that, is starting to work. And because of that. And so there was a part I went over to the head coach. I was like, you don't need me no more. They're coaching themselves. I still want my paycheck though. Don't you worry about it. But they're doing their thing.
Yeah, don't give them any ideas. You'll be on the curb.
Well, he gave me
So,
the social media responsibility too. So I have to go around and take pictures and stuff and do social media. And I said, you
uh,
can't get rid of me because I'm doing this part for free. You didn't give me a bonus.
additional duties as assigned. So,
Well, I was the idiot that volunteered too. I was like, hey, we need social media. That's the new wave. Like you need
okay.
social media. And I said,
Right.
if he wants to do it, I'll do it until I said the words until somebody else steps up and does it because I'm a varsity coach. I'm very busy.
Right.
Turned into Steve, you're doing such a good job. You should just keep doing it. And I said, oh, so I should have done a shit job. So you got rid of me is what I should have done.
Hey, they only add to it if you keep doing well with it. You know what I mean? The play gets bigger and bigger. So compliments to you. Yeah, no, it's crazy. Like, so it's funny, like the social media, all that, the facilities, all it seems to just keep trickling down. Like it's everybody needs this and that at every level. So I mean, it's awesome you provided your kids with that outlet and avenue because I'm sure they like it and they put it on there and all that good stuff. So
Yeah.
so
I run the Facebook group, I run the Twitter page, and I run the Instagram page. So like I have to constantly be posting stuff. The Facebook one, parents love it, old alumni love it. They love to see
yeah,
it.
I say Facebook. Now you're talking my language, but I think I figured out over the past year and a half I've gotten old because kids look at me like, "What's that?" And I'm like,
Oh
"Okay,
yeah.
it's true signs that you're getting old."
I know
So
I tell kids like I run the Facebook page and they go, "Well, no, what about the Instagram?" It's all about Instagram. Twitter's for like coaches. So I figured that out. Facebook is like alumni parents. Twitter is like coaches and stuff. Instagram is for the freaking kids. And then they said to me, "Why don't you run the why don't you make a football one for Snapchat?" And I was like, nope, nope, nope."
I'm not going down that. No, it's not happening. I'm
Or
glad
they
you put your foot in the ground on that one.
or they said TikTok, and I said, "Nope, nope, nope." Uh,
Yeah, if I don't know what it is, I'm good.
I know what it is, but I was like, no, I'm not
Yeah.
going to waste all that time. And then they said, well, what if we do it? And I said, oh, hell no, you guys, the kids. I'm like, no, you ain't doing it because you're going to put something bad out there.
Right, absolutely not. So,
No. So I figured that part out very quick, but they love it. Like, but then the problem was I had to constantly keep posting things. So like after a practice, I need
mhm,
to post the stuff of like, oh, today's practice and put pictures of practice up. But if we had a bad practice and I have to go watch film, the last thing on my mind was like posting that. So
right,
there was actually one time where somebody said, hey, what happened in practice? I'm like, like people were asking. And so nobody ever did it for the team really before, like for the community. So they're like seeing
right.
it. And um, we deal with private schools trying to recruit kids and stuff like that too. So like I need that stuff to be put out there showing what we're doing to you kind of have to like recruit the community to stay. And so you need the social media part. And like then I had to learn how to edit photos. And I'm like, well, I'm not paying
Oh,
for it. How do
oh
I do
boy.
that?
Uh-oh. So Photoshop and all that stuff.
Well, then like graphics for all conference, I was waiting for some of the coaches like, well, we'll make it, Steve, and you post it. I said, okay. Well, about 2 weeks goes by and I put my foot down. I was like, all right, I'm just going to do it myself. And I said, it's going to look dumb. So I did it. And people are like, oh no, it looks good. And I'm like, I did it in like 10 minutes. Like I just, but they loved it. The kids loved it. Like this graphic of all conference for each player. And they loved it. They shared it out. And
Right.
the kids love it for any type of college level coach if they want to go on, even if it's Division 3 or JUCO. They're like they get to see it, and I'm like I think you said the new wave of social media. That's a way to recruit. Is you need the social media part to be big
Mhm.
to see it. So
Right.
that's why I like
Yeah.
doing it too.
Well, I mean, on the same hand too, I think your kids obviously know how invested you are. Like I know taking the time out of your day to have to do that graphic probably wasn't your favorite thing, but the time you took, they can tell like, holy, he doesn't just say he cares for us. And whether they know you did it or not, and it doesn't matter if you, it's like the program cares for them. And as a result, hopefully that will lead to keeping everybody in the community. But same token, our kid, regardless of level, if kids see how invested you are as a staff, they're like, okay, the message you're passing, whatever it may be, it just becomes that much easier to receive, and it gets carried on, and then it becomes cyclical, and you don't have to carry it on as much as a coach or a staff. Your players carry it on because the culture has been set. So,
Well, and the best part was our new athletic director loved it. He was like, "Who runs the social media pages?" And the head coach was like, "Well, Steve does." So he came up to me and goes, "You're doing a good job. I love it," because he's into trying to get that part too. And I'm like, "Okay, the boss likes it." So I'm like, "Okay, good."
that crisis averted. We're all set. So
That's why I said I was like, "Whoo," because I thought when he asked that question, I'm like, "Oh,
it's all gone. Get rid of it. I don't like it at all.
yeah." Or I posted something bad and the superintendent got mad. You're like, "Oh, wait a minute."
Yeah,
And
he
he goes,
did
"Oh,"
it.
he goes, "Oh no, 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 no." I was going to say Addison's never really had a social media presence, and now you're doing it. I love it. And so then he's doing it, and I'm like, "Oh, thank God." And then now all of a sudden, other sports teams are starting to do it too. So I'm like, "Did we start a trend? Did we do
Uh-oh.
this?"
Anytime you're promoting the kids and their good efforts, that's awesome. That's for sure.
Well, Coach, I appreciate your time. I had you on here for a while this morning. I know you got a life and a wife and things to do.
Oh yeah.
Appreciate your time being on here.
No, hey coach, thank you so much. This is awesome. anytime again you get to share your experiences, whether be a good one or a bad one, and get to meet new people and learn new things. You're grateful as heck for that. So I'll keep following, and really, really thank you again. This is awesome. So
Oh no, thank you. You guys are way more important than me when I do this, so I appreciate you not wasting your time, sacrificing your time to be on here.
well, no, appreciate it. It was a good investment. And I look forward to following who follows up here with the next couple interviews you do. All right.
Thank you so much.
All right. You have a good one. Happy holidays.